hello! Welcome to the Council House. Do you know what week this is? This week we're celebrating the arrival of the growing corn. This celebration will last for several days, and it begins when the first of the corn begins to ripen. This corn was planted in April. Why do the Apalachees spend several days celebrating the arrival of corn? Well, because corn is probably the most important of the foods that the Apalachee grow. Corn gives so much food and is important for their survival throughout the year. This time of year, in early summer, it's a time to celebrate and recognize the growing season, giving thanks to the earth and celebrating all the hard work put into growing the crops. During this week, there may be special singing, dancing, cooking, creating crafts, ball game playing, settling disputes and disagreements, and just generally recognizing the importance of food and the community. Are you interested in knowing more about the traditional and native foods that are common in the diet of the Apalachee? Well, great!
Well, since this is the time of year to celebrate food, I thought this would be a great time to talk to you about the Apalachee foods and what a typical Apalachee meal looks like. They eat many more types of foods than you may think, and they eat different things as the seasons change, as some foods are only available in certain months of the year, or they only hunt for certain animals during specific months. Did you know that the Apalachee are farmers as well as hunters? That's right! They grow many food crops, and they live off the land, hunting wild game or animals, and looking for wild edible plants around the forests, rivers, swamps, springs, and in the ocean. However, there are several crops that the Apalachee grow a lot of in their fields. They are probably the most common foods in Florida. Can you guess what they are? Well, if you said maize or corn, beans, squash, and sunflowers, you'd be right. Corn is planted in the spring, and once it grows, a lot of it is dried and stored for future use so that it can be eaten and used throughout the year. Corn gives a lot of food to eat. Oftentimes, the corn is turned into hominy. To make hominy, the Apalachee use a special cooking preparation where whole, dried corn kernels are mixed with water and ashes and cooked, and then cleaned very well. This makes the corn delicious, nutritious, and easy to digest. The hominy can be dried for later use, where it can be put into a stew or ground into flour to make hominy cakes, which is just a simple cornbread, maybe made with some water, sunflower seeds, and some kind of fat, maybe like bear fat. Corn also gives the Apalachee corn husks, or the outside covering of the corn. They can be woven into baskets and mats that are used in Apalachee homes. And corn also gives corn cobs, which is the hard center of the piece of corn. Corn cobs are used in the Apalachee homes and in the council house, in the smudge pits underneath the benches or barbacoas to keep bugs away, and boy do we have bugs. The corn cobs are set on coals in the smudge pits, and they begin to create smoke, which helps keep the bugs away while you sleep, or while the warriors are in council with their chief. And corn gives corn silk. It's the soft golden hairs underneath the husk of the corn, and this is used for medicine by the Apalachee. It is made into a tea to drink. There are also many varieties of squash to eat throughout the year. In the summertime, there is soft squash, which is soft on the outside. It's eaten right away after it's picked from the field. And towards the wintertime, the Apalachee grow hard squash. The hard squash has a tough outer skin that keeps the inside of the squash fresh. It can be stored for many months. And there are many types and flavors of squash, and many ways it can be eaten, like in a stew with some meat, cooked whole in the coals of the fire, boiled in water, or cut and fried in fat. There are just as many varieties of beans to choose from, too. Some beans are sweet and soft that can be eaten right off the vine when picked, and there are some beans that are dried on the vine and hardened so that they can be stored for later use, where they're cooked in stews. And there are also sunflowers. Have you ever eaten sunflower seeds? The sunflowers are not only beautiful, but have seeds that the Apalachee eat in many different ways. They can be dried and eaten as a snack just as they are. They can be ground into a paste to add to stews or in cornbread, or mixed with fruit, and maybe mixed with fat and meat to make a good food for traveling or while working in the fields. I just love sunflowers. So, what do the Apalachee eat other than the crops that they grow in their gardens? They rely on the wild plants and animals to nourish them throughout the seasons. Did you know that there are many wild plant foods commonly eaten by Florida's native people? Make sure to check with an expert before you ever eat any wild plants. First, we have fruits. There is a lot of fruit that grows native in this area of Florida. What types of fruit do you like? Well, you might find that the Apalachee like the same thing. Some of the most common and well-loved fruits available throughout the year are wild plums, blueberries, blackberries, which are available in May and June, wild grapes and grape leaves, available in July through September, beauty berries, and the maypop fruit from the passion flower vine, which are available in August. Elderberries and wild persimmons are ripening just as it turns cold around September and October. And a surprise food, berries from the saw palmetto, which ripen from August to October. You may have thought that these were just for decoration, but oh no, they are definitely food. Saw palmetto berries definitely have an unusual taste, but are delicious, especially with meat dishes. But that's not all the food that can be gotten from the saw palmetto tree. Along with the berries of the palmetto tree, the heart of palm, which is the center of the tree, is also eaten, and it's very delicious. It's white, starchy, and salty sweet. Have you ever eaten heart of palm? The Apalachee also love maypop fruit. And I often see seeds scattered on the floor of the council house after council meetings with the chief in the late summer. The passion flower, as the Spanish call it, is also used as medicine by the Apalachee for sleep and for pain. The wild persimmon is probably the sweetest wild fruit in Florida, especially when you get it so ripe it can easily be squished in your hands with just a little squeeze. When it's that ripe, it's so sweet. Have you ever had a persimmon? Well, if you haven't had one and I had to describe the taste to you, I'd say that persimmons are like a very sweet apple with cinnamon added. All the consistency of a fruit jam, but really nothing can describe the taste. I definitely encourage you to try one when they're ripe this season, in autumn. Do you like blueberries as much as I do? There are multiple delicious types of wild blueberries here in La Florida, and they're such a useful and abundant fruit. They're delicious when they're fresh, of course, but they're also easy to dry and store for something sweet to eat in the middle of winter. The Apalachee also eat a lot of wild nuts. There are pine nuts, which come out of the pine cone from the pine tree, many types of acorns from the various oak trees, but probably the tastiest is the hickory nut. The shells are very strong, like little fortresses. It takes some effort to get the nut meat out of the shell. The Apalachee will crush the hickory nut with the shell and the nut meat together, and gently cook it all. This allows the pieces of the shell to sink to the bottom of the pot, and the nut meat to rise to the top. They let this cool, and the nut butter can be scraped off the top, and dried out and stored, or eaten fresh just like that. There are many wild herbs to eat as well. Along with the passion flower vine and the flowers, there's also wild chickweed, wild violet leaf and flower, and spiderwort. But the Apalachee don't just eat plants, they eat meat as well. I mentioned that they were hunters, and two of the most important animals that they hunt are the white-tailed deer and the wild turkey. The deer provide hides for making deer skin to sleep on, and buckskin, which is tanned leather that can be used to make clothing. And what about turkey feathers? Some Florida Native Americans, like the Timucua Indians, actually make crowns from the turkey feathers. The Apalachee hunt all sorts of animals, from fish and shellfish like clams and oysters in the lakes, rivers, and on the coast near the Gulf of Mexico, to alligator, possums, raccoons, rabbits, many types of turtles, and the wild black bear and the wild bison. As you can see, there is not a lack of food to be eaten in this area. The Florida black bear is incredibly important to the Apalachee people. The bear is considered a strong animal to be respected, and bears provide many important resources for the Apalachee: furs, meat, and of course, fat. Bear fat is vital to the Apalachee diet. The bears eat a lot and get fat stored up before the coldest parts of the year when there's less food for them to eat. The Apalachee are aware of this, and they hunt the bear during the early part of the winter when the bears are at their fattest. The Apalachee cook the bear fat down and use it to cook almost all their food. The fat is cooked down and stored in clay pots during the winter, without fear of it going bad because the temperatures are so cool. They store this fat in pots in their homes all throughout the season, and they use it for cooking pretty much everything. One last animal that we know is hunted in this area is the wild bison. But the Apalachee often trade for bison meat and the thick furs of the animal with the Chicato people. They live near the Apalachicola and Chipola rivers, where the bison are often seen during our time. Isn't it amazing what nature can provide? Next time you have a meal, what will you be eating?